Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a world without softness. Picture yourself not in your comfortable bed, but lying on a rough wool mat on a packed earth floor. The air isn't clean. It's thick with the smells of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and the faint, dusty scent of the vast, indifferent desert waiting just outside. This is the medieval Arabian world, and you've just been born into it. Forget your 5-year plans and your retirement goals. Your main objective for the foreseeable future is simply to survive until next Tuesday. And statistically speaking, you probably won't. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As always, I'd love to see where and when you're tuning in from. So drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your first sensation is not a gentle, warming lamp, but a sudden, shocking cold. The air, dry and abrasive, hits your wet skin and you gasp your first ragged breath. It isn't the sterile, filtered air of a modern hospital. It's laced with microscopic grains of sand, the lingering aroma of cooking fires, and a close, animal smell of the goat whose milk might one day sustain you. The hands that hold you are not gloved and sanitized. They belong to the local midwife, the Daya. Her hands are chapped, her nails are not clean, and her knowledge comes not from books, but from a long, unbroken chain of tradition, a chain that contains as much harmful superstition as it does practical wisdom. She speaks in low, reassuring tones, but her actions are harsh. You are swiftly wiped down, not with a soft towel, but with a coarse, unbleached cloth. Then comes the salt. Handfuls of it, coarse and sharp, are mixed with water and rubbed vigorously into your tender, paper-thin skin. The tradition holds that this will toughen you up, harden your flesh against the world's many evils and ailments. It's a sort of welcome and a warning, all in one painful, stinging ritual. Your scream is thin and reedy, lost in the confines of the small, mud-brick room or the billowing wool of a family tent. There is no incubator, no neonatal care unit. Your survival depends entirely on the strength of your own tiny lungs and the simple, often flawed, care of those around you. Once you are cleaned, or at least salted, you are swaddled tightly. Think less of a cozy blanket and more of a baby burrito, your limbs bound securely to your torso by long strips of cloth. This is for your own good, they believe. It keeps you warm in the surprisingly cold desert nights and prevents you from scratching your own face or startling yourself with flailing limbs. But it also leaves you utterly helpless, a small, breathing parcel in a world teeming with unseen dangers. You can't move, you can't roll away, you can't even twitch. You can only lie there, your dark eyes staring up at a ceiling of packed mud and straw, or the intricate, smoky patterns on the inside of a Bedouin tent. This utter helplessness is the defining feature of your first year. And here is the first, stark reality of your new life. You are a gamble. A precious, but precarious, bet. Your parents look at you with a mixture of profound love and a deep, unspoken dread. They've been here before. They've held other tiny bodies, whispered other names into the dark. It is a simple, mainstream historical fact of your time that infant mortality is staggeringly high. Historians estimate that anywhere from a third to half of all children born will not live to see their 5th birthday. The 1-year milestone we celebrate today was the first, and perhaps greatest, hurdle of your entire existence. Every sunrise you greet is a small victory. Every fever that breaks is a miracle. When you look at the other children in your family compound or nomadic clan, you are looking at the lucky ones, the survivors of a brutal biological lottery. The threats are not just the ones you can see or feel: the heat, the cold, the grit in the air. The greatest dangers, your family believes, are supernatural. And the most feared of all is a shadowy figure who haunts the twilight hours and the silent, sleeping world of newborns. She is known by many names, but most call her a Malsibian, the mother of infants. You are no longer just a breathing parcel. The world has expanded from the confines of your swaddling to the dusty floor of your home. You can crawl now, exploring the textures of the packed earth, the rough weave of carpets, the cool, smooth surface of a clay pot. And with this new, limited mobility comes your first great education, the lesson of thirst. It's a feeling that will become your constant companion, a low, humming background noise to the rest of your life. It's the scratchiness in your throat when you wake, the slight dizziness in the afternoon heat, the desperate, primal urge that drives so much of the world's activity around you. Your mother, seeing you fuss and crawl towards the large water jar in the corner, decides you are ready. This is a perilous moment, a transition more dangerous than your birth itself. You are being weaned. You will now drink water. She dips a small cup into the jar and brings it to your lips. You eagerly gulp it down, expecting relief. But the taste is wrong. It's not the sweet, clean, sterile water you might imagine. It's lukewarm, and it tastes of dust, of the clay pot it's stored in, and fatally of the goatskin bag it was carried in. It's gritty. It's alive. This is your reality now. There is no tap, no filter, no conveniently chilled bottle. This murky, unsettling liquid is life itself. You quickly learn that water does not simply appear. It is the product of immense, daily, back-breaking labor. If you live in a small village or a nomadic camp, your entire day is structured around the watering. In the relative cool of the morning or the evening, you watch the women of your household, your mother and older sisters among them, hoist heavy, empty water skins onto their shoulders and begin the long walk to the well. You toddle along behind them, trying to keep up, the dust puffing up around your bare feet. The well is the center of your social universe. It's the original water cooler, the place for all the news, gossip, and arguments. But it's a water cooler that requires you to haul a heavy, wet rope, hand over hand, from 100 feet below the Earth's surface. You watch, fascinated, as the worn leather bucket ascends, dripping, from the darkness. The sound of the rope scraping against the stone lip of the well is one of the most common sounds of your childhood. The women work together, their muscles straining, their conversation flowing with the rhythm of the work. They trade stories of births and sicknesses, complaints about husbands and mothers-in-law, and warnings about which routes are safe from bandits this week. They fill their skins, heavy, sloshing bags made from the entire hide of a goat, and then begin the punishing walk back, their posture bent under the weight. This single task can consume hours of every single day. It is a mainstream historical fact that incredible ingenuity was poured into water management across the medieval Arabian world. If you live in a great city like Baghdad or Damascus, you might not rely on a simple well. Your life could depend on a vast, underground cistern, a man-made cavern lined with plaster that collects the scant winter rains, holding thousands of gallons in cool, dark stillness. Or you might benefit from one of the true marvels of the ancient world, the Cannet. These were brilliant systems of underground channels, dug by hand for miles, that tapped into distant aquifers at the base of mountains and used a gentle, gravity-fed slope to carry water to towns and fields. It was an astonishing feat of engineering, creating life and civilization where there should have been none. But even with this brilliance, the system's final stage is still profoundly unsanitary. The water may have traveled 10 miles underground, but it ultimately ends up in a public fountain or basin, where everyone dips their own unwashed buckets and skins, sharing much more than just the water. And that is the terrible paradox at the heart of your existence. Water is life, but your water is also a carrier of death. Remember the staggering infant mortality we talked about? This is its greatest accomplice. The moment you stopped drinking your mother's milk and took that first sip of earthy water, you began a lifelong game of Russian roulette with your digestive system. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery, giardia, a whole host of microscopic monsters swim invisibly in that precious cup. Your people have no concept of germ theory. They see the effects, of course. They call it summer sickness, the waves of debilitating diarrhea and vomiting that carry away the weak, the elderly, and especially the children, every single year. They blame it on bad air, on an imbalance of the body's humors, or on the malevolent will of the jinn. They never suspect the water itself. This brings a layer of supernatural dread to the most basic of chores. This is a quirky, but pervasive, part of your worldview. That deep, dark well is not just a hole full of water. It's a place of power, a portal. Jinn, it is said, are drawn to water and make their homes in the cool, damp blackness of wells and cisterns. You are taught from a young age to be respectful at the well. You must not shout or laugh too loudly, or throw things into the opening. To do so might anger the well's unseen resident, who could then spoil the water, cause the well to run dry, or worse, pull you in. Every time you lean over the edge to watch the bucket descend, a part of you feels a chilling thrill of fear. You are staring into a creature's lair. This belief, while terrifying, serves a practical purpose. It keeps careless children from falling into what is, essentially, a very deep, unguarded hole in the ground. Your family, like everyone else, does have its own primitive form of water purification. After the long walk home, the water is poured into a large, porous earthenware jar, a matar, and left to sit for a day. The idea is that the impurities, the visible grit and dirt, will settle to the bottom, and the clay of the jar itself will help clarify the water. Sometimes, a bitter almond is rubbed on the inside of the pot, in the belief that it helps the process. But historians still argue whether these simple sedimentation methods provided any meaningful protection from disease. While letting the water stand might make it look and taste a little better, It does absolutely nothing to remove the dissolved bacteria and viruses that are the true killers. It's a measure that provides the illusion of safety, making you feel like you're taking a wise precaution while you are, in fact, still drinking a contaminated fluid. You see the consequences everywhere. A playmate who was healthy last week is now listless and pale, wasting away from a sickness in their bowels. An old man in the village dies after a few days of fever and stomach pains. These events are frequent, tragic, and accepted as part of the natural order of things. For you, a child, the lesson is simple and brutal. Thirst is a pain that demands to be answered, but answering it is always a risk. You learn to live with a constant, low-level dehydration, drinking only when you absolutely must. You learn to ignore the strange taste, the floating specks. You learn to say a small prayer before you drink, hoping that divine intervention might succeed where your clay pot has failed. Your entire body becomes a barometer for water. Your lips are often chapped. Your skin is dry. You know the early signs of dehydration not from a textbook, but from instinct. You understand the geography of your world not by roads, but by water sources. An oasis is not a pretty spot with palm trees. It is a sacred zone of truce, a place where even mortal enemies might water their camels side by side, because the law of thirst is paramount. To find a spring is to find life itself. To own a well is to have power. To deny a traveler water is one of the gravest sins. This substance, so simple and yet so complex, governs your health, your community, your movements, and your fears. It is the most sought-after treasure in your world, and you've already learned that it is a treasure that can betray you. That desperate, nagging thirst we talked about. It has a name, and it has a face. It is the sun. Here, in this world, the sun is not a cheerful, life-giving orb. It is a celestial tyrant, a relentless white-hot eye in a bleached blue sky. Your relationship with it is not one of gentle warmth and pleasant summer days. It is a state of perpetual siege. The sun is the enemy, and your entire life is a carefully choreographed retreat from its oppressive glare and suffocating heat. You don't have thermostats or air conditioning. You have stone, cloth, and cunning, and they are often not enough. Your day begins not with a gentle dawn, but with an urgent announcement. As the first sliver of light ignites the horizon, a clock starts ticking. The world explodes into a flurry of activity. This is the precious window of relative cool. If you have to travel, you leave now. If there is hard labor to be done in the fields, it happens now. The markets are a chaotic frenzy of buying and selling because everyone knows this energy is finite. The air is still and cool, the shadows are long and deep, and for a few blissful hours, you can move and work without the weight of the heat pressing down on you. But as the sun climbs higher, the mood shifts. The shadows shrink and vanish. The energy begins to drain from the world. By late morning, the siege is in full effect. The glare reflecting off the sand or the pale walls of the city is blinding. Metal objects like door knockers or tools become untouchable, capable of blistering your skin. The very air seems to thicken and shimmer, and a deep, oppressive silence descends. This is the dead time. All sane creatures, human and animal, seek refuge. The bustling marketplace is now deserted. The streets are empty. The world holds its breath, waiting for the tyrant to pass its zenith. Your family retreats into the darkest, coolest part of your dwelling, and you do not move unless you absolutely have to. This enforced, society-wide siesta isn't a luxury. It's a core survival strategy, a collective surrender. Your home is your primary fortress in this daily war, and it stands as a mainstream historical fact that architecture was one of the most effective weapons you had. If you live in a town or city, your house isn't built to look outward with big picture windows. It looks inward. The rooms are arranged around a central courtyard, creating a private, shaded oasis for your family. This courtyard might even have a small fountain or a basin of water, the evaporation from which cools the air. The walls of your home are incredibly thick, sometimes several feet, made of mud brick or stone. During the cool night, the walls bleed out the day's heat, and during the day, their sheer massiveness slows the penetration of the sun's rays, keeping the interior relatively cool. The windows are small, narrow slits placed high up on the walls, designed to let in light without admitting a direct blast of heat. Many are covered with intricate, beautiful screens of carved wood, known as mashrabiyah. These are not just for decoration. They are a work of genius, breaking up the direct sunlight into dappled patterns, and, more importantly, allowing any breeze to flow through while still providing shade and privacy. If you live in a particularly sophisticated city, some buildings might have a bargeal, or wind catcher. This is a tower that rises from the roof, designed with vents that catch the prevailing winds and funnel the air down into the rooms below. It's the closest thing your world has to air conditioning, a silent, elegant machine powered only by the wind. Your clothing, too, is a form of architecture for the body. The loose, flowing robes of light-colored linen or cotton that you wear are not a mere fashion choice. They are essential technology. The light color reflects sunlight, and the loose fit allows air to circulate freely around your skin, wicking away sweat and cooling you through evaporation. Your head covering, whether a simple cloth or a more complex turban, is your personal, portable shade structure. It shields your head and neck from the direct, punishing rays, preventing the headaches and dizziness that come from too much exposure. Beyond these practical measures, you have a few other tricks. This is where you find the quirky, almost magical, folk science of staying cool. One of the most pleasant is the use of henna. You watch the women mix the dried, powdered leaves of the henna plant into a thick, dark paste. They use it to draw beautiful, intricate patterns on their hands and feet. As the paste dries, cracks, and is eventually flaked off, it leaves behind a reddish-brown stain that can last for weeks. But its most immediate effect is a profound, cooling sensation on the skin. For days after an application, your palms and soles feel refreshingly cool. It's a small, simple pleasure, a kind of cosmetic air conditioning that makes the oppressive heat just a little more bearable. It's certainly a better option than some of the other bizarre cosmetic pastes you sometimes hear whispers about, concoctions meant to protect the skin that involve ingredients you'd rather not think about. But even with all these adaptations, the heat takes a relentless, cumulative toll on your body. And here, historians and medical anthropologists still debate the full, devastating extent of the long-term health consequences. The constant dehydration, even at a low level, puts an incredible strain on your kidneys. Kidney stones are a common and agonizing ailment in your world, a direct result of a lifetime of concentrated urine and not enough water. The ceaseless, blinding glare of the sun reflecting off the pale earth forces you into a perpetual squint. By the time you reach what we would consider middle age, there's a high chance you'll be suffering from cataracts, your vision growing milky and dim, leading to an early blindness that is all too common. Your skin, perpetually exposed despite your best efforts, becomes leathery and wrinkled long before its time. Your body is being slowly cooked, dried, and weathered by its environment. The immediate danger of heat stroke is also a constant companion to any physical effort. If you are a farmer in the field, a guard on a wall, or a traveler on the road, you are always at risk. It starts with a throbbing headache and a wave of dizziness. Your sweating might suddenly stop. Confusion sets in, a terrifying delirium where the shimmering world no longer makes sense. If you can't get to shade and water immediately, collapse and death can follow swiftly. You've seen it happen. Everyone has. It's another one of the sudden, casual dangers of your world. Then, finally, comes the release. As the sun begins its descent, the world stirs back to life. A breeze, for the first time all day, feels cool instead of feeling like the blast from an oven. The oppressive weight lifts from the air. The stones and walls of the city begin to radiate the heat they have stored all day, a final, parting gift from the sun. People emerge from their homes. The marketplaces reopen for the evening. Children, including you, spill out into the narrow streets to play in the gathering dusk. There is a palpable sense of collective relief, a shared joy in this brief, blessedly cool interlude. You, your family, your entire city, have survived the siege for one more day. But as you lie on the roof of your house, trying to sleep under the stars where the air is coolest, you know with absolute certainty that the truce is temporary. The tyrant is only resting, and it will be back for you tomorrow. The oppressive tyrant, the sun, has finally retreated, and as the life-giving coolness of evening settles over the world, another, more personal tyrant makes its presence felt: hunger. Suppressed by the deadening heat of the day, it now awakens with a sharp, insistent demand. The aromas of cooking, absent for hours, begin to drift through the narrow streets, the scent of wood smoke, of onions frying, of baking bread. Your family gathers on the floor around a low communal tray. There are no individual plates, no complex place settings. There is just the shared dish, the shared bread, and the shared experience of satisfying a fundamental need. Forget any romantic notions of lavish banquets with overflowing platters of glistening lamb and jewel-like piles of rice. That is a world that exists only for caliphs and wealthy merchants. Your world, the world of the everyday person, is far more brown. The centerpiece of tonight's meal, and almost every meal, is bread. But this is not the soft, fluffy, pre-sliced loaf you might be imagining. This is a dense, coarse, unleavened flatbread, cooked quickly on a hot metal dome or slapped against the searing interior wall of a clay tanner oven. It's chewy, it's tough, and it serves as both your staple food and your spoon. You tear off a piece and use it to scoop up whatever else is on offer. And it's gritty. No matter how carefully the grain is milled by hand between two heavy stones, a little bit of sand and stone dust always makes its way into the flour. This isn't a trendy, artisanal, whole-grain loaf. It's just the way it is. What are you scooping up with this bread? It might be a simple, thin stew, a therid, which is little more than some vegetables like onions or turnips boiled in a broth, into which you break the bread itself to soak up the liquid. If you're lucky, the broth might be flavored with a knuckle bone or a tiny, precious piece of meat. More often, it's a thick porridge of boiled barley or millet, known as saag, or a humble dish of lentils, seasoned with garlic and salt. The flavors are earthy, simple, and above all, repetitive. This is not a culinary adventure. This is fuel. It's a mainstream historical fact that your survival depends on a simple trio of foods: dates, barley, and milk. This is the holy trinity of your diet. Barley, ground into flour for your gritty bread or boiled into porridge, provides the bulk, the substance that fills your belly. Milk from a goat or a camel is your primary source of protein and fat. But it's rarely drunk fresh, as it would spoil within an hour in the desert heat. Instead, it's cultured into a sour, tangy yogurt or a thin, drinkable fermented milk called Laban, which can last for days. And then there are the dates. Dates are everything. They're your candy, your sugar, your energy bar, and your vitamin pill all rolled into one. The date palm is called the tree of life, and for good reason. It thrives where little else can grow, and its fruit, easily dried and stored, provides a burst of intense, life-sustaining sweetness in a diet that is otherwise relentlessly savory and bland. Meat is a rare and treasured luxury. You don't have a butcher shop on the corner. You eat meat on special occasions, a religious festival, the celebration of a birth, or when an animal has grown too old for milking or labor. The flavor of the goat meat is strong and gamey, and not a single part of the animal is wasted. The head, the feet, the organs, everything is cooked and eaten. To taste meat is a genuine event, a break in the monotony that you will talk about for days. The lack of refrigeration defines your relationship with food. Preservation is a constant battle against decay. Any meat that isn't eaten immediately must be heavily salted and dried into jerky. Fruits and vegetables are intensely seasonal. You gorge on cucumbers and melons during their brief harvest, knowing that for most of the year, your diet will be a rotation of things that last: dried dates, dried figs, sacks of grain, and jars of lentils. This unavoidable monotony doesn't just bore your palate, it starves your body of essential nutrients. But sometimes, the sky itself offers up a bizarre and unexpected bounty. This is the quirky, and to our minds, stomach-turning, reality of your food supply. Imagine a low, dark cloud appearing on the horizon, accompanied by a strange, crackling hum. It's a swarm of locusts, a biblical plague that can devour every green thing in its path, destroying the crops and condemning your community to famine. It's a terrifying sight. But it is also, paradoxically, a harvest. As the swarm descends, people rush out with blankets and nets, not to fight the insects, but to catch them. This plague is also a source of food, one that is even sanctioned by religious tradition. Later, you watch as the captured locusts have their legs and wings pulled off. They are then roasted over the fire or fried in a pan until they are reddish-brown and crispy. Sprinkled with a little salt, they have a crunchy texture and a nutty, savory flavor. It's the original high-protein, low-fat snack, delivered right to your doorstep. It's a strange, desperate kind of miracle, your potential ruin, transformed into your dinner. So you sit there, with a belly full of barley bread and perhaps a few roasted locusts, and you feel satisfied. But are you truly nourished? Historians and archaeologists who study skeletal remains from your era still debate how widespread chronic malnutrition truly was. On the surface, you are eating, but the bones of your contemporaries tell a different story. They show evidence of lives spent on the edge of nutritional disaster. They find harassed lines, thin horizontal marks on leg bones that indicate a child's growth was repeatedly stunted, likely by seasonal famine or severe illness. They find skulls pocked with tiny holes, a condition called parodic hyperostosis, which points to severe, chronic anemia, probably from a lack of iron in the diet. They find teeth, not just worn down by grit, but with bands of poorly formed enamel, another sign of severe nutritional stress in childhood. You may not feel hungry right now, but your very bones may carry the silent record of a deep, cellular hunger. This precarious nutritional state is the engine behind so many of your world's other miseries. Remember how a third of your playmates won't survive childhood? A mother living on a diet of barley and dates struggles to produce rich milk, and her baby, already fighting a world of pathogens, is weakened from the start. Your own body, undernourished and lacking key vitamins, has a much harder time fighting off the diseases lurking in that questionable water you have to drink. Your diet isn't just monotonous, it's a fundamental vulnerability, a weakness at the very core of your existence. The meal is over. The tray is cleared. A final, sweet date is a dessert fit for a king. There is no pantry to raid for a midnight snack, no refrigerator to open and stare into. This feeling of fullness has to last you until morning. As you settle down to sleep, the taste lingering in your mouth is of soured milk, of coarse grain, of dust, and, if it was a special day, the faint, gamey memory of goat. It is the simple, unsentimental taste of one more day of survival. You wake up, and the familiar, dusty taste of morning is wrong. It's thick and foul. A fire seems to be lit behind your eyes, and a strange, heavy weakness has settled deep in your bones. The vulnerability created by the grit in your food, the microbes in your water, and the relentless stress of the sun has finally breached your body's defenses. You are sick. There is no popping a few pills and toughing it out. There's no calling in sick to work. In your world, illness is a profound crisis, a terrifying visitation from an unknown power. Your family notices immediately. You are listless. Your skin is hot to the touch. The normal remedies are tried first. A cool, damp cloth is placed on your forehead. Your mother forces you to drink a bitter, herbal infusion that has been passed down through generations. You are kept in the darkest part of the house, away from the malevolent sun. But the fever climbs. The weakness deepens. A fearful, whispered conference is held between your parents. The time for home remedies is over. They must summon the Hakim. The physician's arrival is an event of great gravity and quiet dread. He is a man of status, and he carries himself with an air of immense authority. He does not arrive with a neat leather bag containing a stethoscope and a thermometer. His tools are his piercing eyes, his educated nose, and a small collection of frighteningly sharp and pointed metal objects. You can't go online to check your symptoms. You can only submit to his judgment, which is based on a system of medicine that is ancient, intricate, and almost entirely incorrect. His first demand is for a sample. A flask of your urine is brought to him. And now you witness the quirky, yet central, diagnostic art of your time, uroscopy. The Hakim doesn't send it to a lab. He is the lab. He holds the glass flask up to the light, his eyes narrowed in intense concentration. He observes the color. Is it pale like straw, or a fiery red? or a dark, murky brown? He gives the flask a gentle swirl, watching how the sediment, then a becula, drifts and settles. He might even unstopper it and take a cautious sniff. He is performing a complex calculation, comparing what he sees against an elaborate mental chart, a urine wheel that connects every possible hue and density to a specific ailment. This is your diagnosis. It's deeply personal, highly ritualized, and offers about as much scientific accuracy as reading tea leaves. After a long, dramatic pause, he declares his findings. The foundation of his diagnosis, and the mainstream medical fact of your entire world, is the theory of the four humors. This elegant system, inherited from the ancient Greeks, posits that your body is governed by four vital fluids: blood, which is hot and wet; phlegm, which is cold and wet; yellow bile, which is hot and dry; and black bile, which is cold and dry. Perfect health is a perfect balance of all four. Your fever, he explains with unshakable confidence, is clearly caused by an excess of blood. Your body is too hot, too wet. Therefore, the cure is logical, obvious, and utterly terrifying. The excess humor must be removed. Two primary methods are available to achieve this. The first is bloodletting. The hakim produces a small, sharp blade called a lancet. Your arm is held steady. You feel a sharp, stinging pain as he makes a swift incision in a vein on the inside of your elbow. Your blood, the very substance of your life, flows freely into a brass bowl. The hakim watches the color and consistency of it, nodding sagely, while you grow paler and dizzier. You are already likely anemic from your poor diet, and this procedure, designed to cure you, is pushing you closer to shock and circulatory collapse. He is literally draining your life away to save you. If the ailment is considered more localized, a persistent headache, a pain in your chest, a swelling in your joints, and even more brutal treatment might be prescribed: cautery. The physician's assistant brings in a small brazier of glowing coals. The hakim selects a metal rod from his kit and places the tip into the coals until it glows a menacing orange red. He explains that your ailment is caused by an excess of a cold, or wet, humor at that location. The application of pure, dry heat will burn it away and restore balance. You are held down. There is a sickening sizzle, a plume of acrid smoke that smells of burning hair and meat, and a searing, white-hot agony that eclipses the pain of your actual illness. He has just branded you. The open wound is a new gateway for infection, and the scar you will carry for the rest of your life is a permanent reminder of your cure. Now, it is here that we must face a great contradiction, a topic historians still debate: the true legacy of the great Islamic physicians. You've probably heard of the golden age of Islamic medicine. And it was real. Far away from your little house, in the great cities like Baghdad, Cordoba, or Ray, brilliant minds like Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, were writing the canon of medicine. A monumental encyclopedia that would be the standard medical text in Europe for 500 years. Men like Al-Razi were pioneering clinical observation, differentiating between smallpox and measles for the first time, and insisting that physicians have actual hospital experience. They were performing delicate cataract surgeries and documenting thousands of medicinal plants and their effects. But that is not your world. That is the medicine of the caliph's court, of the wealthy elite. The groundbreaking knowledge of these geniuses trickles down to your local hakim in a distorted, simplified, and brutalized form. He may have heard the name of Ibn Sina, but the complex, observational spirit of his work is lost. All that remains is the ancient, flawed dogma of the humors, in its most violent applications. The golden age of medicine may as well be happening on the moon, for all the good it does you. You are also given potions to drink, of course. Bitter, foul-tasting concoctions of boiled herbs. Some of them, through generations of trial and error, might actually be effective. A tea made from willow bark might genuinely help your fever, because it contains salicin, the natural compound from which we derive aspirin. But it's mixed in with a dozen other useless or even harmful ingredients, and nobody knows which part is working. The effective remedy is tangled up with pure superstition, a dash of practical herbalism in a soup of magical thinking. The Hakim finally packs his tools, collects his payment, perhaps a chicken or a bag of grain, a significant expense for your family, and leaves, dispensing final instructions to keep you warm and pray. You are left on your mat, trembling from a mixture of fever and fear. Your arm throbs where the cut was made, or a hot, angry burn sears your skin. You are weaker and more pain, and now have a fresh, open wound to contend with. If your fever breaks tomorrow, your family will praise the wisdom of the Hakim. If you get worse, it is God's will, or a sign that the imbalance was too great to correct. You have just come face to face with your doctor, and you have learned that the cure can be just as dangerous as the disease. You survived your fever. You even, somehow, survived the physician's cure. The burn on your skin has scabbed over, the dizziness from the bloodletting is faded, and you have rejoined the world of the living. You feel a fragile sense of victory, a renewed appreciation for the simple, bland taste of your daily bread. But that was a personal battle, a skirmish fought within the walls of your own body. What happens when the sickness is not just in you, but in everyone? What happens when the enemy is not a localized imbalance of your humors, but an invisible, silent, and unstoppable army? It begins with a whisper. A traveler from the south, his face etched with a fear you don't yet understand, speaks of a town where the markets have fallen silent. A caravan arrives with half its men missing, the rest telling stories of a swift and terrible illness that left no survivors in the last oasis they visited. At first, it's just talk, frightening stories from faraway places. Then, it arrives. Your neighbor's youngest child, who was playing in the street yesterday, develops a raging fever. The next day, another family falls sick. A strange, unnatural quiet begins to settle over your neighborhood. The usual sounds of children shouting and vendors calling out their wares are replaced by a tense silence, punctuated by the sound of wailing from behind closed doors. There is no public health authority to issue guidance, no World Health Organization to track the spread. There is only rumor, panic, and a creeping, invasive dread. Every person you pass on the street becomes a potential source of annihilation. A simple cough makes you flinch away. The shared cup at the public fountain now seems like a vessel of poison. Your world, already fraught with danger, shrinks to the size of your own home, and fear is the lock on your door. This is the reality of an epidemic, a mainstream historical fact of your time. Your era is repeatedly scourged by waves of mass disease. Great plagues have swept through before, like the biblical-sounding plague of Amwas that devastated the region centuries ago, and they will come again. But the more common terror, the one you have seen before in others and have always feared for yourself, is smallpox. And now, it has chosen you. It starts with a violent fever and aches so deep in your bones it feels as if you are being broken apart from the inside. Then the rash appears. It's not just a few spots. It begins on your face and hands and spreads with terrifying speed, covering every inch of your skin. The small red bumps soon swell into hard, painful blisters, filled with a thick, milky fluid. You are no longer just sick. You are a vessel of the disease, a living testament to its horror. The itching is a torment, and the pain is constant. Each pustule is a tiny focus of agony, and you are covered in thousands of them. Your family is now trapped in a nightmare. They must care for you, but every touch is a risk. Your loving mother, who held you through your childhood fevers, now looks at you with a mixture of love and terror. The physician with his lancet and hot poker is useless against this. He may refuse to even visit, or if he does, he will mutter something about the air being corrupted, prescribe a useless herbal drink, and leave as quickly as he can. Your survival is now entirely between you, your own body strength, and the will of God. And what your people believe about the will of God in this moment is a complex and soul-crushing piece of theology, a quirky, yet powerful, tidbit that shapes your entire experience. It is taught that a plague, the A with Macron N, is a unique event. For the unbelievers, it is a punishment from God. But for the faithful, for you and your family, it is described as a mercy, a blessing in a terrifying disguise. To die in a plague, while remaining in your home and patiently accepting your fate without panic or complaint, is to be granted the status of a martyr, a shahid. It is a guaranteed path to paradise. This belief creates a terrible paradox. The rational, human impulse is to flee, to take your healthy family members and run to the clean air of the desert. But to do so could be interpreted as a lack of faith, as running away from God's divine test. So you must stay, watching your loved ones suffer and die, caught between the instinct for survival and the promise of holy martyrdom. It is a psychological trap of the highest order. As the days turn into weeks, the fabric of your community disintegrates. The normal rituals of life and death break down. In your culture, the swift, respectful burial of the dead is a sacred duty. Each body is to be carefully washed, shrouded in clean cloth, and given its own grave. But now, there are too many dead. The bodies pile up inside houses. The grave diggers themselves fall sick. The careful, individual rites become an impossible luxury. You hear the rumble of carts in the night, and you know they are not carrying goods to market. They are carrying the dead, your neighbors and friends, to be unceremoniously tipped into vast, common pits dug outside the city walls. The sheer scale of the death is almost impossible to comprehend. And here, historians and demographers still argue about the true death tolls of these ancient pandemics. The chroniclers of your time write that a third of the city perished, or that half the population was gone in a single season. These figures may be colored by panic and grief, but the underlying truth is one of cataclysmic loss. The city is hollowed out. Entire families are erased. The economy grinds to a halt. There are not enough farmers to harvest the grain, not enough merchants to trade the goods. The world you knew just a month ago is gone, replaced by a husk. Let's say you are one of the lucky ones. Your fever breaks. The agonizing pain recedes. The pustules dry up and begin to flake away, leaving behind raw, new skin. You have survived. But you will never be the same. You will carry the permanent signature of the disease for the rest of your life. Your face, once smooth, is now a landscape of deep, pitted scars, the pockmarks that will forever brand you as a survivor. Perhaps the blisters formed on your corneas, and you are now partially or completely blind. You survived, yes, but you are disfigured. a living reminder of the plague's visit. When the last case has recovered or died, and the epidemic finally burns itself out, a new, emptier world emerges. You walk through the streets of your own city, and they feel alien. There are too many shuttered houses, too many missing faces in the market. The air is thick with a collective, unspoken grief. The fear has receded, but in its place is a profound sense of fragility. You know now, in a way you never did before, that your life, your family, your entire community exist on a knife's edge. The unseen enemy is not truly gone. It is just resting. And you live with the chilling certainty that, one day, it will return. The plague has passed, and an eerie quiet has settled where panic once reigned. The city, hollowed out by death, breathes again, but its breath is shallow. As you step out from the relative safety of your home, this new emptiness allows you to see your world with a brutal clarity. You begin to understand that the plague was not just some random, malevolent spirit. It was a predator, and your city, and its very design and daily function, was the perfect hunting ground. You walk through the streets, but street is too generous a word. There is no neat grid, no smooth pavement. You are walking on packed earth, which turns into a sucking, foul-smelling mud with the slightest rain and chokes you with fine, gritty dust in the dry heat. The lanes are narrow, winding, and claustrophobic. In many places, the upper stories of the houses lean out over the street, almost touching, blotting out the sky and creating a permanent, gloomy twilight. This is not a pedestrian-friendly city, it's a chaotic obstacle course. The first thing that hits you is the smell. It is a physical presence, an atmosphere you wade through every day of your life. There is no single scent, but a thick, complex stew of them. The base note is waste, the sharp, ammoniac tang of human and animal urine, mixed with the smell of rotting garbage and open cesspits. Layered on top of this are the smells of life, the rich aroma of baking bread from a communal oven, the savory scent of onions and garlic frying, the sweet perfume of incense drifting from a mosque, the metallic smell of hot iron from a blacksmith's forge, and the heady, exotic scent of spices, cumin, coriander, and cloves piled high in the market. It's the smell of 1,000 households living, cooking, and excreting in far too small a space. Then comes the noise. Silence is a luxury you will never know. From dawn until dusk, the city is a cacophony. There is the rhythmic, deafening clang of a coppersmith beating a pot into shape, a sound that echoes off the stone walls and drills into your skull. There are the vendors, shouting to advertise their wares, their voices rising in a constant, competitive clamor. There is the incessant braying of donkeys, the primary beast of burden, as they are beaten and cajoled through the crowded lanes. And weaving through it all is the fabric of human sound, the chatter of haggling, the laughter of children, the shouting of arguments, and the low murmur of prayer. There are no zoning laws here, no separation of residential and industrial. The tannery, with its foul chemical smells, might be right next to your home. This chaotic jumble is, in a way, structured. It's a mainstream historical fact that your city is divided into distinct zones. There is the great public artery, the suck or bazaar, where the commercial heart of the city beats. This is where you find the Grand Mosque, the caravanserais for traveling merchants, and the endless maze of shops. But the moment you turn off this main thoroughfare, you enter a different world. You duck into a narrow lane that leads to your residential quarter, your hara. The lanes become even narrower, twisting and turning, until many terminate in a blind cul-de-sac, a darb. This is a semi-private space, shared by just a few families. It's here, behind a heavy, anonymous-looking door, that you find your home. But what happens to the waste generated behind all these doors? And this is the quirky, disgusting, and inescapable truth of your urban life. It gets thrown into the street. There is no municipal sanitation department, no weekly garbage collection. You simply wait for a moment when the lane is relatively clear, open a window, and toss out your household refuse, vegetable peels, fish heads, bones from last night's meal, ash from the fire, and even the contents of your chamber pot. You might shout a customary warning, Tarek, make way, before you throw, but it's a chaotic and deeply unsanitary system. The street is your garbage dump. This filth piles up, attracting swarms of flies and legions of rats. Remember the plague? This is its nursery. You are living in the breeding ground of your own destruction. And it's on this very topic of urban design that historians and urban planners still debate. Was this maze-like city, with its confusing warren of dead-end streets, the result of some grand, deliberate plan? Some argue yes, that it was a brilliant design for promoting privacy, fostering tight-knit communal bonds within each darb, and creating a formidable defensive labyrinth that would confuse and trap any invading army. Others argue the opposite, that it's not a design at all, but simply the result of centuries of organic, unplanned growth, a physical manifestation of a lack of central planning. From your perspective, standing in the muck of your lane, you can see both truths. The layout gives your family immense privacy from the prying eyes of the public street, but it also creates a chaotic, filthy, and unhealthy environment right outside your door. You venture into the suck to buy some lentils. It's an assault on the senses. You are squeezed and jostled by the crowd. A donkey laden with water skins pushes past, forcing you against a wall. The colors are dazzling: piles of turmeric and paprika, bolts of silk, carpets hanging in rich tapestries. But right next to the spice merchant is the butcher, his stall covered in a black blanket of flies, the metallic smell of fresh blood mingling with the sweet scent of saffron. This is not the clean, packaged, farm-to-table experience of a modern market. This is raw, visceral commerce, where life and death, beauty and filth, are piled right on top of each other. You see now how all the hardships of your life are connected. The contaminated water your family drinks, Section 2, is seeped in the filth from these very streets. Your fortress-like home, Section 3, is a necessary sanctuary from the public chaos. The rampant disease that stole your neighbors, Section 6, thrived in this crowded, unsanitary environment. Your city is not just your home. It is an active participant in the struggle of your life, a beautiful, vibrant, and deeply unhealthy creature. Finally, you make it back to your own darb. The roar of the main market fades to a manageable hum. You push open the heavy door to your family's courtyard and step inside. The air is instantly cooler, cleaner. The noise is muted. You have returned to your tiny island of relative order and a sea of chaos. You close the door, and the city, with its smells and its dangers, is shut out once more. You have learned a fundamental lesson. Safety only exists inside your own four walls. For weeks after the plague, the four walls of your home have been your entire world, a sanctuary you are terrified to leave. But life, with its relentless demands, cannot be held at bay forever. A message must be sent to a relative in a distant town. Your family needs to trade its small surplus of woven cloth for grain. A pilgrimage is required. For whatever reason, the verdict is in. You have to travel. The safety of the city, with all its familiar chaos and filth, must be abandoned for the vast, silent, and infinitely more dangerous world beyond the gates. Preparations are a matter of grim, life-or-death calculation. There is no packing a suitcase with a change of clothes and a toothbrush. Your focus is on the absolute essentials of survival. You spend a day patching and filling every water skin you own, knowing that the brackish, contaminated water from your city well will soon seem like a sweet nectar. You pack food that will not spoil, hard, twice-baked rusks of your gritty barley bread, a bag of dried dates, and some salted cheese. This is your fuel for a journey of unknown length. But before you even pack the first date, there is a crucial, quirky step your family might insist upon. You must find an auspicious time to depart. To leave on the wrong day, when the moon is ill aspect or the planets are in conflict, would be to court disaster. So, you might consult an astrologer, or an old man in your quarter who has a reputation for knowing the science of the stars, the LM Al-Nujum. He will cast charts and perform complex calculations to determine the perfect window for your departure, a moment when the heavens are aligned in your favor. This is not seen as mere superstition. It's a practical measure, an attempt to gain some small measure of control over the terrifying randomness of the road. Your travel insurance is a combination of a sharp knife, a full water skin, and the blessing of a favorable horoscope. Finally, the chosen dawn arrives. You join your small caravan, a handful of other travelers who have pooled their resources for safety, at the city gates. As you pass through the massive archway, the familiar noise and smell of your city recede, replaced by a profound and intimidating silence. The gate closes behind you with a dull thud, and you feel a knot of fear tighten in your stomach. You are now a tiny, vulnerable speck in an immense, indifferent landscape. You have no map, no compass, no GPS to guide you. Your life is in the hands of the caravan leader's memory and his reading of the sun and stars. A wrong turn doesn't mean a scenic detour. It means you will run out of water and die. The sun, your familiar antagonist from within the city, is now an unyielding overlord. There are no narrow streets or high walls to offer shade. It beats down on you relentlessly, hour after hour, leaching the water from your body. The landscape is a monotonous expanse of rock and sand, shimmering under the heat. The only sound is the wind, the soft, rhythmic padding of your camel's feet, and the creak of leather. This hypnotic rhythm, the endless, swaying gait of the camel, is the maddeningly slow tempo of your journey. And then there are the human dangers. Every rocky outcrop, every dip in the terrain, could be hiding bandits. You scan the horizon constantly, your heart leaping at any distant shimmer or puff of dust. The caravan travels in a tight, defensive cluster, but everyone is on edge. The people you travel with are strangers. That merchant with the expensive-looking silks, is he an honest trader or a spy for a local bandit clan? Can you trust the man walking next to you not to slit your throat in the night for the water in your sack? The fear from outside the caravan is matched by the suspicion within it. It is on this very subject that historians and chroniclers still debate. Who were these bandits that haunted your nightmares? Were they purely evil men, professional criminals who lived for plunder? Or was the reality more complex? Many were likely desperate peasants, driven from their lands by the same droughts and crushing taxes that made your own life so hard. Some were nomadic tribesmen, who didn't see it as banditry at all, but as the collection of a traditional and forceful toll for passage through their ancestral lands. The line between a brigand and a desperate man is often blurry, but it makes little difference when their knife is at your throat. After a day that feels like a lifetime, a day of heat and thirst and fear, the caravan leader points to the horizon. You see it, a dark, square shape, low on the skyline. It's a caravanserai, a khan. The sight brings a wave of relief, so profound it almost makes you weep. It is a mainstream historical fact that these fortified inns were the lifeblood of travel, essential nodes in the vast network of trade routes. They were spaced roughly one day's journey apart, offering a promise of safety in the wilderness. As you draw closer, you see it's a formidable structure, a large, square fortress with high walls and a single, massive, defensible gate. You hurry inside just before the gate is barred for the night, and you are plunged from the desert silence into a vortex of noise and chaos. The vast central courtyard is a swirling mass of people and animals. Camels are groaning and spitting, donkeys are braying, and merchants from Persia, Syria, and Egypt are shouting at each other in a dozen languages. The ground floor is a maze of stables and alcoves for securing animals and goods. A steep set of stairs leads to a second-story gallery, which is lined with small, dark, cell-like rooms. This is your five-star hotel for the night. The amenities include a stone floor for walls and a door you can bar. The caravanserai is a true zone, but a tense one. You eat your meager meal of dry bread and dates, guarding your belongings with your life. You listen. This is the information superhighway of your age. Here you learn which routes are beset by new bandit attacks, which wells have run dry, and whether the plague has broken out in the city you are traveling towards. It is here, in the shared space of the smoky courtyard, that you might learn something that will save your life tomorrow. In the morning, the gate is unbarred, and the entire cycle begins again. You plunge back into the vast, dangerous silence. The brief respite of the Khan is just a punctuation mark in a long sentence of hardship. Day after day, it's the same routine. The fearful travel, the monotonous landscape, the rationing of water, and the profound relief of reaching the next fortified inn. Then, weeks after you left home, you see it. Not another caravanserai, but the high, protective walls of your destination city. The journey is not over yet. The last few miles outside a city's walls are often the most dangerous, as bandits lie in wait for travelers who have let their guard down. But the end is in sight. When you finally pass through the gates, leaving the wild desert behind you, the overwhelming feeling is not a sense of adventure. It's not the thrill of discovery. It is the simple, bone-deep, all-consuming relief of a gambler who has put his life on the table and against all odds, has won. The profound relief of surviving your journey slowly evaporates in the heat and noise of the new city. The high walls that promise safety now feel like the boundaries of a new kind of prison. Back home, you were known. You had a family, a history, a place in the complex web of your community. Here, you are a ghost. A stranger with the dust of travel still on your clothes and no one to vouch for your existence, let alone your character. This anonymity, which felt like freedom in the vast desert, is about to become your greatest liability. It happens in the dizzying chaos of the suck. You are haggling with a cloth merchant, your hand on a bolt of simple blue cotton. You get distracted by a passing camel train, turn back, and the merchant suddenly cries out, his voice sharp with accusation. He claims you have stolen a small silver brooch from his display. It's a lie, a misunderstanding, or perhaps a deliberate ploy to cheat a newcomer. But his cry attracts a crowd. Instantly, you are surrounded. He is a respected local, a man people have known for years. You are a nameless face. The city guard, the shurta, are summoned. There is no common inquiry, no reading of your rights. You don't have the right to remain silent. You have the obligation to defend yourself against a rising tide of public opinion. You are grabbed by rough hands and hauled away. You are not taken to a formal police station, but directly to the court of the Qadi. This might be a grand chamber near the city's main mosque or a simple, unadorned room with mats on the floor. The effect is the same. The air is heavy with authority and fear. At the head of the room, sitting on a raised platform, is the judge himself. The Qadi is an imposing figure, his face framed by a large, meticulously wrapped turban, his expression one of stern impassivity. He is the law. His judgment is swift and, for you, potentially catastrophic. This is the mainstream historical reality of justice in your world. The entire system is personal, immediate, and rests almost entirely on oral testimony. The Qadi listens as your accuser, the merchant, presents his case. He speaks with confidence, his voice ringing with righteous indignation. Then comes the crucial part, the witnesses. Do you have witnesses? The Qadi asks. The merchant gestures to two other shopkeepers from the suck, who are promptly brought forward. They are his neighbors, his friends. They both solemnly state that yes, they saw your hand dart out and palm the silver brooch. It's a lie, but their testimony is gold. They are known men, property owners, Muslims in good standing. And who are you? You are asked to speak, and your voice is a dry whisper in the echoing room. You have no lawyer to speak for you, no one to argue the finer points of the law. You can only state your innocence, but your words are weightless. The Qadi looks at you, a dusty traveler with shifty, frightened eyes, and then at the three respectable merchants. The scales of justice are not balanced. They are tipped by the heavy weight of social status. You can see your fate spooling out before you. The punishment for theft is severe, a terrifying physical mutilation that will brand you for life. Panic begins to cloud your thoughts. But perhaps this Qadi is a particularly pious man, wary of sending a soul to ruin without absolute certainty. Or perhaps he simply notes a flicker of doubt in the eyes of one of the witnesses. He declares that the evidence, while strong, is not definitive. He is going to offer you a way out. He is going to let you take the oath. This is where your trial moves from a legal proceeding to a terrifying act of religious theater. This quirky, but deadly serious, ritual is your only hope. You are informed that to prove your innocence, you must swear a yamin, a sacred oath before God. A refusal to do so is considered a full confession. You are led from the courthouse into the solemn, cavernous space of the main mosque. The afternoon prayer has just ended, and the air is still thick with piety. You are brought before the minbar, the tiered pulpit from which the weekly sermon is given. A copy of the Quran is brought forth. In front of the Qadi, your accusers, and a crowd of onlookers, you are instructed to place your right hand on the holy book. Your hand is trembling. You must repeat the words dictated by the court clerk, your voice echoing unnaturally in the vast, silent space. You have to say your name, state your innocence, and then invoke the name of God, calling for his wrath and eternal curse to fall upon you if you are lying. This is no mere formality. Everyone in the room, including you, believes in the literal power of these words. To lie now is to invite not just earthly punishment, but divine damnation. It's the most stressful moment of public speaking imaginable, with your immortal soul as the price of failure. And as you stand there, hand on the book, a thought chills you. Is this justice? Or is this simply a system designed to protect the powerful? Historians of Islamic law still debate how closely the day-to-day practice of the courts mirrored the high-minded ideals of Sharia. The legal texts, written by brilliant scholars, describe a system of almost perfect justice where the poor and the rich are equal before the law and God's will is paramount. But you know, with the certainty of a cornered animal, that this is not always the case. You know that if your accuser were a wealthier man, if he had been able to discreetly pass a purse of silver to one of the Qadi's clerks before the hearing, you would have been condemned without a second thought. You know that justice, like the finest silk in the market, is often for sale. Your voice cracks, but you recite the oath. You swear by God, the merciful, the compassionate, that you are innocent. A heavy silence falls over the mosque. The Qadi watches your face intently. Having performed the oath, you have, in the eyes of the law, cleared your name. The burden of proof was on your accuser. He failed to meet it conclusively, and you did not shrink from God's judgment. The Qadi bangs his staff, a sign that the matter is concluded. He dismisses the case. You are free. But as you stumble out of the mosque into the harsh sunlight, you feel no elation. You feel only the cold dread of a near miss. The merchant and his friends glare at you with pure hatred. You have not only defied them but have implicitly branded them as liars or false witnesses in a sacred space. You have won the legal battle, but you have made powerful, bitter enemies in a city where you have no friends. Your reputation, the most valuable currency you possess, is now tarnished. You walk quickly away from the mosque, melting back into the anonymous crowds. You have survived the desert, and now you have survived the law. You have learned that a man's life can be ruined not just by a sandstorm or a bandit's knife, but by a few well-placed lies in an echoing courtroom. Justice, you now understand, is not a shield for the weak. It is a weapon for the strong. You walk away from the mosque, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You are legally free, but you are a marked man. The glares of the merchant and his cronies follow you like a physical weight. In this city of strangers, you have created powerful enemies, and you have no one to protect you. Your freedom, which you so narrowly defended with a sacred oath, is more fragile than you could possibly imagine. It rests not on law or justice, but on the simple, brutal arithmetic of power, and you have none. The revenge is not long in coming. It happens a few nights later, in a dark, narrow alley you are using as a shortcut. One moment you are walking, the next, a heavy blanket is thrown over your head, muffling your cry for help. Rough hands bind your wrists, and you are dragged into the shadows. There is no struggle you can win, no one to witness your abduction. In the space of 10 heartbeats, your life is over. The life of the free man who survived the desert and the courtroom has ended. A new, terrifying existence is about to begin. You are sold. Not in the open market, not yet. You are passed like a dirty coin from the merchant's thugs to a man with cold, assessing eyes, a nakas, a professional slave trader. You are thrown into a locked storeroom with a few other miserable souls, and then shackled into a small, shambling caravan. The journey is a grim parody of the one you took willingly. The sun is just as hot, the thirst just as biting, but now you are not a traveler. You are cargo. You are prodded and kicked, given just enough food and water to keep you alive, your value measured only by your physical stamina. Your destination is the slave market of another, even larger city. And it is here that your humiliation becomes a public spectacle. You are stripped to a simple loincloth, washed down like an animal, and pushed onto a raised wooden platform. The trader begins his loud, oily sales pitch, praising your strength and your youth. A crowd of potential buyers gathers. They are not interested in you as a person. They are assessing a piece of livestock. A man with soft hands in a rich robe walks up and forces your mouth open, inspecting your teeth for signs of age or disease. Another prods your muscles, feeling your arms and back to gauge your strength for labor. You are told to walk, to turn, your every movement scrutinized for defects. You stare out at the sea of faces with dead eyes, your old name, your family, your entire history erased. You are a body for sale. It's on this block that you see the terrible, mainstream truth of this institution. Slavery in your world is an equal opportunity catastrophe. Next to you on the block is a young woman with skin as pale as milk and hair the color of straw, captured by raiders in the distant, cold forests of the Slavic lands. She is a Sacalaba. A little further down, you see a powerfully built man with skin as dark as polished ebony, his face bearing the ritual scars of a tribe from deep within Africa. He is a Zanj, likely captured in a tribal war and marched across the searing desert. Slavery is not about a single race or origin. It is about the simple, brutal fact of who has the power to capture and sell, and who has the misfortune to be captured. Eventually, you are sold. A wealthy official, impressed by your relatively healthy appearance, pays the price. You are now his property, as much as the house he lives in and the camel he rides. He gives you a new name, Salim, meaning safe or unharmed, an act of supreme, casual irony. Your old name is never to be spoken again. This is your new life, the ultimate entry-level position in a corporation of despair, and there is no path for promotion, only a lifetime of service. You have no contract, no rights, no human resources department to appeal to. You have a master. Your days become a cycle of crushing monotony, designed to grind down your will. You wake before dawn, and your work ends long after sunset. You haul water, you grind grain, you clean the courtyard, you run errands, you follow every order instantly and silently. You learn to make yourself small, to become invisible, a piece of talking furniture. Your thoughts, your feelings, your memories of a life before this, they're all a dangerous indulgence. A moment of hesitation, a sullen look, can earn you a beating. Your value is in your obedience and your labor. And here is the quirky, maddening legal trap that ensnares you. You know you are freeborn. You know that under the high-minded principles of Islamic law, the enslavement of a free Muslim is a grave sin. But how do you prove it? This is the gaping loophole between the law is written and the law is practiced. You were kidnapped, not captured in a legitimate war. But who will believe you? You are hundreds of miles from anyone who knew you as a free man. Your word against your master, a wealthy, respected official, is less than nothing. You are a victim of a crime that the system itself condemns, but which it is utterly powerless to rectify on your behalf. Your life is not one of constant, overt violence. Your master is required by his faith to provide you with adequate food, clothing, and shelter. You might even, ironically, eat more regularly than you did as a poor, free man. It is this very nuance that historians still debate. Was slavery in your world somehow milder or more humane than the vast chattel slavery systems that would arise elsewhere? It's true that manumission, the freeing of a slave, was encouraged as a pious act. It's true that some slaves, particularly the Turkic military slaves known as Mamluks, could rise to positions of immense power, even becoming sultans. But as you lie on your thin mat in the slave quarters, does any of that matter? Does the fact that a Mamluk might rule Egypt make the loss of your own freedom any less total? Does the possibility that your master might free you in his will 20 years from now give you back your youth? The scholarly debate is an abstraction. Your lived reality is this: you own nothing, not even the clothes on your back. You cannot marry without your master's permission. Your children, if you were allowed to have them, would be born into slavery. You have no control over your own body, your own time, or your own destiny. You are, in every meaningful way, a non-person. You learn to wear a mask of placid obedience, to bury your true self so deep it can never be found. The memories of your past life, of your family's faces, of the simple dignity of making your own choices, begin to feel like a dream you once had. To remember too much is to invite a pain that is unbearable. You have lost your home, your freedom, your name, your future. And yet, late at night, in the suffocating darkness of the slave quarters, you whisper your real name to yourself. It is a tiny, flickering ember of defiance in a vast ocean of despair. It is the only thing they haven't been able to take from you. Not yet. But let's pause our story for a moment. We've been following a you who has been a son, a traveler, a defendant, a slave named Salim. But what if the consciousness we are following on this journey, the soul experiencing this unforgiving world, was born into a different body? What if you were not Salim, the slave, but Salima, the daughter of the master? In that case, your life would not be one of toil in the fields or the terror of the slave block. Instead, you would face a different kind of servitude, a different kind of prison. It would be a prison with comfortable cushions and perfumed air, but its walls would be just as high, and they were built around you from the moment you were born. Your birth is not met with the same exuberant celebration as that of your brother. There are no loud festivities, no proud announcements in the marketplace. There is a quiet, polite acceptance. A girl is a blessing, of course, but also a responsibility, a vessel of family honor that must be guarded and, eventually, married off. From your first breath, your path is narrower, your future already sketched out by hands other than your own. While your brother, as he grows, is gradually allowed to explore the world outside, first the courtyard, then the local neighborhood, then the chaotic energy of the entire city we walked through earlier, your world shrinks. Your universe is the house. Specifically, the women's quarters, the haram. This word literally means forbidden or sacred, and it is the mainstream historical reality that defines your existence. This is your sphere, a world of women, sealed off from the eyes of all men who are not your close kin. You experience the bustling city not as a participant, but as a spectator, watching the slivers of life that are visible through the beautiful, frustratingly intricate lattice of a mashrabiyah window. The sounds and smells of the street drift up to you, a tantalizing hint of a world you will never truly know. Your education is starkly different from your brother's. You might be taught to read the Quran, to study poetry, and to understand the mathematics of commerce. You are taught the skills deemed appropriate for your future role. You learn to spin and weave, to manage household supplies, to command servants, and to cook. You are taught the importance of modesty, of obedience, of a lowered gaze. Your career options are, to put it mildly, limited. You have one job title available to you, wife. And your entire upbringing is a long, intensive training program for that single role. The harem is not empty, however. And this quirky, intricate social world becomes your reality. It is a complex, self-contained society, a hierarchy ruled by the senior woman, your mother. In this world, you live alongside your sisters, your aunts, and perhaps a second, younger wife your father has taken. You also live with the female slaves. That pale Sacalaba girl or dark-skinned Zanj woman from the slave market. They are here, living and working alongside you. It's a world of intense and subtle politics, a place of whispers, shared secrets, fierce loyalties, and bitter rivalries. The favor of your father, the patriarch, is the ultimate prize, and the women around you are constantly jockeying for influence. It's an endless game of office politics where the office is also your home and your prison. It's here you learn about things the men outside don't discuss. The folk remedies to ensure fertility, the amulets to ward off the evil eye from a newborn, the quiet magics of women. Then, just as you reach puberty, you are officially put on the market. Not the slave market, of course, but the marriage market, which for you is not so different. You have no say in the matter. Your father, in consultation with your mother, will arrange a match. It is a strategic alliance, a way to cement a business relationship or bolster the family's social standing. You are a pawn in a game being played by men. You might hear whispers about your intended husband, that he is old, or bad-tempered, or that he already has a wife, but your opinion is irrelevant. You will likely not see his face until your wedding day. It's the ultimate blind date, and it lasts for the rest of your life. Your wedding day is the day you trade one cage for another. You are adorned in the finest clothes, perfumed and painted, and transferred from your father's house to your husband's. Your new life is, in essence, your old life, but with a new master. Your primary duties are now clear: to provide your husband with heirs, preferably sons, and to manage his household with quiet efficiency. Your status, your security, and your happiness all depend on your ability to fulfill these roles. On the surface, you are utterly powerless, a beautiful object passed from one man to another. But it is on this very point that historians, particularly feminist scholars, still debate. How much real agency could a woman like you actually exercise from within these gilded walls? The answer is complex. While socially and publicly subordinate, Islamic law did grant you specific and important rights. The dowry, the mahr, given to you by your husband, is your personal property, to manage and dispose of as you see fit. You have the right to inherit property from your parents. And while you could not easily go to the Qadi's court yourself, you could appoint a male agent, a wakil, to represent your financial interests. Your real power, however, is informal, wielded from within the home. Your influence over your husband, your role as his confidant, and the mother of his children, is immense. As you grow older and become the senior woman of your own household, you become a matriarch, a formidable power in your own right, ruling over your children, your daughters-in-law, and your servants. You are not a helpless victim. You are a strategic player in a difficult and restrictive game, using the few tools you have, influence, tradition, and legal rights, to navigate your world. But the limitations are always there, a constant reminder of your subordinate status. You cannot leave the house without your husband's permission, and when you do, you are shrouded in a heavy veil and accompanied by a chaperone. Your public identity is erased. In a court of law, your testimony, if you were ever called upon to give it, is worth exactly half that of a man's. Your entire life is defined by your relationship to the men around you. You begin as your father's daughter. You become your husband's wife. And your greatest hope for future status is to become your son's mother. So you sit by your latticed window, just as you did when you were a girl. You are the respected mistress of a fine home. You are safe from the filth of the street and the specter of starvation. You have beautiful clothes and servants to do your bidding. You are, in many ways, privileged. But you look down at the slave girl sweeping the courtyard, the one who was captured and sold, who has nothing, and you might feel a strange and troubling kinship. Her chains are of iron, and they are plain to see. Yours are of gold and silk, of honor and tradition. But they are chains nonetheless. You are safe within the high walls of your home, a respected woman in a gilded cage. You are insulated from the filth of the street, the squabbles of the market, the struggles of the poor. But that safety, that privilege, is a fragile illusion. It depends entirely on a much larger, thicker wall, the wall of your city. And when the drums of war begin to beat, you learn that no domestic fortress, no matter how secluded or well-appointed, can protect you from the ambitions of violent men. It starts, as it always does, with rumors. Frightened peasants from the surrounding villages begin to stream into the city, their faces grim, their carts piled high with whatever they could carry. They speak of an approaching army, of burned fields and slaughtered livestock. The mood in the city shifts from its usual chaotic rhythm to a low, humming panic. The great city gates, usually open from dawn till dusk, are closed and barred with heavy wooden beams. Your city, your world, has just become an island. From the highest rooftops, you can see them. A vast sea of tents spreads across the plains, surrounding you completely. The banners of an enemy sultan or a rival emir flap arrogantly in the breeze. Thousands of soldiers, a mix of disciplined regulars and wild tribal horsemen, are making camp. The siege has begun. Your life is no longer your own. It is now dictated by the will of the men outside and the strength of the stone walls around you. The first sound is what you will remember most. It's a deep, rhythmic, gut-wrenching thump, a pause, and then a high-pitched, whistling shriek, followed by a deafening crash. That is the sound of the Manjanik, the great siege engine, the trebuchet. It is the sound of a rock the size of a grown man being hurled at your city. Hour after hour, day after day, the terrible rhythm continues, a monstrous heartbeat counting down the moments of your potential doom. Sometimes the stones harmlessly shatter against the thick ramparts. Other times, they sail over the walls and smash into the city itself, obliterating a house, a market stall, a life. You learn to live with a constant background of terror. This is the hard, mainstream reality of medieval warfare. It's not always about glorious cavalry charges in the open field. It is often a slow, brutal, scientific process of strangulation. The enemy army has engineers. Their goal is to break you or starve you. They build massive siege towers to try and scale your walls. They dig tunnels, trying to collapse a section of your fortifications from below. And all the while, their archers send waves of arrows arcing over the walls, making any open space, even your own courtyard, a potential killing ground. Inside the walls, a different kind of siege begins. The city's granaries are seized by the governor's soldiers, and food is strictly rationed. The meager diet you were used to now seems like a feast. Soon, you are eating coarse bread made with more chaff than flour. The price of a handful of dates skyrockets. The thirst you knew from the desert heat becomes an agonizing obsession as the city's cisterns begin to run low. Hunger and thirst become the new rulers of your city. But the enemy is not just attacking your walls and your stomach, they are attacking your mind. And it's here that you witness the quirky and utterly depraved tactics of psychological warfare. One morning, the whistling sound of the catapult is different. What lands in the middle of a nearby plaza is not a rock. It is the bloated, stinking carcass of a dead horse, hurled over the walls in a deliberate attempt to spread disease and poison your dwindling water supply. Another day, they launched the severed heads of the city guards they captured in an earlier skirmish. This is not just warfare, it's a form of terrorism, designed to shatter your morale and convince you that surrender is the only option. There is no Geneva Convention here, no concept of rules of engagement. There is only a terrifying, brutal pragmatism. You huddle in your home, listening to the thud of the mangonels and the gnawing emptiness in your belly, and you might wonder why this is happening. Historians still argue about the true engine of this constant warfare that plagues your era. Is it religion? Is this a holy war, a jihad, waged to expand the domain of the faithful or to punish heretics? Is it about dynastic pride, the simple, egotistical ambition of a prince who wants to carve out a larger kingdom for himself than his father had? Or is it, beneath all the grand rhetoric of faith and glory, a desperate and bloody competition for resources? Is this entire, horrific spectacle just about controlling a patch of fertile land, a reliable river, a strategic port? The reason is irrelevant. As you listen to your children crying from hunger, the result is the same. After weeks, or perhaps months, the moment you have dreaded arrives. A section of the wall, weakened by the relentless bombardment, finally crumbles into a mountain of rubble. A great roar goes up from the enemy camp. The city's bells begin to ring in frantic alarm. You hear screams, the clash of steel, the sounds of fighting in the streets. The enemy is inside. Now, all order dissolves. The sack of the city begins. The soldiers, who have been camped outside your walls for months, dreaming of loot and revenge, are unleashed. They swarm through the city, kicking in doors, killing anyone who resists. The door to your own home, the one that separated your private world from the public, is smashed to splinters. A group of soldiers, their faces flushed with violence, storms into your courtyard. The gilded cage is shattered. The honor your family so carefully guarded is now meaningless. Your husband and brothers are cut down where they stand. Your wealth, your fine carpets and brass lanterns, are looted. And you, your mother, your sisters, your children, you are the ultimate spoils of war. In that moment, your status as a free, high-born woman is erased. You are seized, your veil is torn away, and you become a captive. You are now a slave, destined for the same market we saw before, your fate now tied to the whim of a soldier who sees you as nothing more than a prize. The army will eventually move on, a river of violence flowing to its next destination, leaving behind a smoking, corpse-choked ruin. For the few who survive and are not carried off, there is only the task of burying the dead and trying to comprehend the totality of their loss. You have learned the most brutal lesson of your world, that everything you hold dear, from your family's honor to your own life, can be extinguished in an instant. All of your society's intricate rules and structures are a thin, fragile crust over a volcano of violence, and that volcano can erupt at any time. Not all ruin arrives with the terrifying crash of a siege engine or the screams of a city being sacked. Some forms of destruction are quiet, methodical, and creep upon you not from a foreign enemy, but from the very ruler who claims to protect you. After the war, there might be a fragile peace. You, a farmer, have painstakingly replanted your fields. Or you, an artisan in a slowly recovering city, have finally managed to produce a few good pieces of pottery. For a fleeting moment, you allow yourself a flicker of hope. Perhaps, this year, you will finally get ahead. And that is always when the tax collector arrives. His arrival in your village or your city quarter is not a neutral civic event. It is a moment of profound dread. He is not a humble clerk with a ledger. He is the local Emil, an agent of the state, and he often travels with armed guards, a clear and unspoken threat. He embodies a power you cannot fight, a demand you cannot refuse. The laughter in the village square dies down. Doors are closed. A heavy, anxious silence falls. This isn't a friendly visit from your local revenue service. This is a shakedown, and it has the full authority of the law. You are subject to a whole host of taxes, a mainstream historical fact of your life. In theory, some of them are fair and ordained by God. As a Muslim, you owe the zakat, an annual alms payment on your wealth and produce, meant to be redistributed to the poor and needy. It's a pillar of your faith. If you were a Christian or a Jew, you would pay the jizya, a poll tax, in exchange for the state's protection and exemption from military service. And everyone who works the land pays the carriage, a tax on the harvest. These are the formal, predictable burdens. But the real misery comes from the taxes that are not in the holy books. These are the mukus, the endless, arbitrary, and un-Islamic levies imposed by rulers desperate for cash. That war we just survived, it was phenomenally expensive. The soldiers need to be paid. The caliph wants a new garden for his palace. A governor needs to send a lavish gift to his superior. And so you pay. Suddenly there is a tax on your olive press, a tax on your loan, a tax on every animal you bring to market, a toll to cross the river. There is no budget, no fiscal year. Tax season is whenever the state feels poor, and the state always feels poor. It's a system designed for maximum, unpredictable extraction. To make matters worse, the man standing before you, demanding a third of your grain harvest, might not even be a direct government employee. And this is the quirky, insidious genius of the system. He is likely a tax farmer, a mukti. Your ruler, rather than dealing with the messy business of collecting taxes himself, has sold the rights to your entire district's revenue to this wealthy man, perhaps a military commander or a court favorite. The mukti pays the state a fixed sum up front, and then he has the right to squeeze the district for every last coin he can get, to make back his investment and a handsome profit. He is the ultimate middleman, a private entrepreneur whose entire business model is based on your financial ruin. He doesn't wait for you to harvest your wheat. He comes while it's still green in the fields and makes his assessment, always generously overestimating the potential yield. He claims his share not from the general pile, but from the very best of your crop. He leaves you the rest, the stalks that are a bit thinner, the grain that is a bit smaller. You watch as your hard labor, the product of a year of wrestling with the sun and praying for water, is loaded onto his donkeys and carted away. There is no appeals process. There is no one to complain to. He is the law. Arguing with him is like arguing with the weather. Only the weather doesn't carry a sword. This is how you are kept perpetually on the edge of ruin. The portion of your harvest or your earnings that you are left with is just enough, in a good year, to feed your family. There is no chance to build a surplus, to save for a daughter's dowry, to buy another animal, or to repair your tools. You are on a treadmill of subsistence, running as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. And one bad harvest, one sick animal, one family illness, is all it takes to push you over the edge into crippling debt. And it is here that historians and economists still debate the long-term consequences of this system. Was this rapacious taxation the primary engine of economic decline in your world, or was it merely a symptom of it? Did the endless greed of the tax farmers and the state inevitably lead to agricultural collapse, as desperate peasants fled their lands rather than work for nothing, leaving irrigation canals, your precious cannons, to fall into disrepair? Or was it that the state was already weak, its trade routes failing, and so it had to resort to these brutal, short-sighted tax policies just to keep itself from imploding? For you, the answer is academic. You just know that your grain silo is half empty, and your children's bellies will have to be stretched. You see how this system feeds all the other monsters of your world. This is the money that pays for the armies that destroy cities like yours. This is what buys the caliph's silk robes while you wear scratchy wool. When you stood before the Qadi, you saw how justice was swayed by wealth and status. The tax collector is the embodiment of that status, and there is no court that will hear a case against him. If you cannot pay, you might be thrown into prison, or forced to sell a child into servitude, or become a debt slave yourself. Your life forfeit for the price of a few sacks of wheat. The collector and his guards finally leave your village, their animals laden with the fruits of your labor. A heavy silence returns, but it's not the silence of peace. It is the quiet of despair. You stand in your empty threshing floor, your hands raw from the harvest, and you look at your family. You have survived another shakedown. You have been plundered not by a bandit on the road, but by your own government in the full light of day. It is a war fought not with swords and arrows, but with ledgers and armed guards, and it is a war you can never, ever win. The tax collector has gone, leaving behind him a quiet, gnawing emptiness. Your grain is gone, your savings are gone, and your hope for the coming year has been carried away on the back of his donkey. All you have left is your own mind, your own consciousness. But this inner world, your last refuge, is no peaceful sanctuary. It is a landscape shaped by ignorance, haunted by fear, and stalked by an army of invisible enemies. It is a mainstream historical fact of your time that you are almost certainly illiterate. The great libraries of Baghdad and the brilliant poets of Cordoba are as distant from your reality as the moon. You cannot read the Holy Scripture for yourself, relying instead on what the local imam chooses to share in his Friday sermon. You cannot read a merchant's contract, a ruler's decree, or a physician's treatise. Your knowledge of the world is not built on text and evidence. It is woven from the stories of your elders, from shouted rumors in the marketplace, and from the deep, dark well of tradition. When a strange light appears in the night sky, you can't Google what a meteor is. When a sickness sweeps through your village, you can't look up germ theory. Your only explanations are the ones you have been given. And the explanation for almost everything that goes wrong, for every misfortune that cannot be easily explained, is supernatural malevolence. The world, for you, is not a neutral stage of physical laws and random chance. It is a deeply enchanted and hostile place. and its primary agents of chaos are the jinn. This is the quirky, but absolutely central, tidbit of your worldview. The jinn are not the comical, wish-granting genies of later stories. They are a terrifyingly real and powerful race of beings who share the world with you. You are taught that they were created from a smokeless fire, just as humans were made from clay. They live in a parallel dimension, invisible to you most of the time, but they can and do interact with your world. They are much like humans. They form tribes. They have kings and societies. They can be believers or infidels, good or evil. The problem is, you can never be sure which kind you are dealing with, and many of them harbor a deep resentment for humankind. You learn that they have their favorite haunts, places you must avoid or enter with extreme caution. They love ruins, cemeteries, and places of filth, like the garbage heaps we saw outside your city. They are especially fond of liminal spaces, the places that are neither one thing nor another, the doorway's threshold, the twilight hour between day and night, and, most famously, the bathhouse. The hammam, with its steam, its water, its nakedness, is considered a prime residence for jinn, and you would never enter without whispering the proper protective formulas. Your world is a psychological minefield, where even the most mundane locations can be fraught with invisible danger. Remember your fear of the village well? It's not just the physical danger of falling in. It's the fear of the jinni who lives in the damp darkness below. The jinn are the ultimate explanation for life's miseries. That sudden fever your child developed, the jinni must have touched him in the night. That man in the market who suddenly shouts nonsense and foams at the mouth? He is Majnun, possessed by a jinni. A sudden sandstorm that wipes out a caravan is the work of an enraged jinni tribe. They are the reason your milk sours, the reason you trip in the dark, the reason for the phantom pains you feel in your joints. They are the unseen arrows that cause the plague, a belief that turns an epidemic from a biological event into a supernatural assault. But what did the educated elite think of all this? The great scholars and physicians in the cities? Historians of science and religion still debate how deep the chasm truly was between the worldview of a scholar and that of a commoner. While a physician like Ibn Sina was meticulously documenting clinical symptoms and attributing disease to an imbalance of the humors, your local healer was prescribing an amulet to hang over your door. While the theologians in the grand mosques were debating the finer points of God's divine nature, your mother was whispering incantations to protect her children from the evil eye. Were these two separate, parallel worlds of belief? Or was the reality more blended? Even the most rational scholar might still feel a chill in a graveyard and mutter a prayer for protection. The line between formal religion and folk superstition was often blurry, a spectrum of belief rather than a stark divide. Living in this haunted world requires a constant state of spiritual vigilance. You learn to fight back with a host of small, defensive rituals. You might wear an amulet, a hijab, containing a tiny, folded piece of paper with a Quranic verse written on it. This is your personal antivirus software against supernatural harm. Before you pour hot water onto the ground, you must remember to say Dester, permission, lest you accidentally scald an invisible jinni child playing there, inviting the wrath of its parents. You burn foul-smelling herbs like harmal seeds to drive evil spirits from your home. You learn to never whistle at night, as it is said to attract them. Your life is governed by 1,000 tiny rules and rituals designed to appease and ward off the unseen world. So this is the final prison. Your body is besieged by hunger, thirst, and disease. Your property is at the mercy of the tax collector. Your freedom is contingent on the whims of the powerful, and your mind, the one place you should be able to find peace, is instead a theater of fear. You are living in a world that you cannot fully understand, and your imagination, starved of science, fills the void with monsters. Every shadow could be a lurking jinni. Every illness could be a spiritual attack. You are a pawn in a cosmic struggle you can only glimpse, and it is exhausting. This constant, low-grade fear is the background hum of your entire existence. Your mind is a haunted house, filled with the shadowy forms of jinn and the fear of the evil eye. But for the vast majority of people in your world, these supernatural terrors are not separate from their daily life. They are woven into the very fabric of it. Because for most people, life is not about the intrigue of the court or the commerce of the city. It is about the dirt. Let us imagine, now, that you are a fella, a peasant, a farmer. Your world is a small plot of land that you work until your bones ache, but that you will never own. Your year is a relentless cycle of back-breaking labor, powered by your own muscles and the help of a single, scrawny ox. It begins with plowing. But forget any image of a mighty John Deere tractor turning rich, dark soil. Your primary tool, a mainstream historical fact of your life, is the ard, or scratch plow. It is a simple, light, wooden plow that has been used in this region for thousands of years. It has no wheels, no moldboard to turn the soil over. It is essentially a pointed stick, perhaps tipped with a small piece of iron, that you must force through the dry, compacted earth. You lean on it with your entire body weight as your ox strains ahead, carving a shallow, pathetic furrow. You have to make pass after pass, crisscrossing the field, to even begin to prepare the seedbed. The sun beats down on your neck, your hands are raw from the rough wood, and every muscle on your back and shoulders screams in protest. Planting is an act of pure, desperate faith. You take the seed grain you painstakingly saved from last year's meager share, and you cast it across the furrows, praying that you have timed it right. Your entire future now depends on the whims of the sky. Will the rains come? Remember the constant, desperate thirst of your world? For you, it is an obsession. Too little rain, and your seeds wither and die in the ground. But a sudden, violent downpour, and your precious seeds, along with the topsoil, can be washed away in a flash flood. You stare at the sky every day, searching for a sign, a whisper of a cloud, a change in the wind. As the first green shoots appear, your work only intensifies. Now begins the war against weeds, fought on your hands and knees, pulling up thorny invaders one by one. And you must guard the fields constantly. A herd of wandering goats can destroy a corner of your crop in minutes. Flocks of birds descend to steal the ripening grain. This is a battle fought from dawn to dusk. And your fight is not just with the visible pests. It is also with the quirky, invisible forces you believe are at work. That swarm of locusts that can blot out the sun and devour your entire field in an afternoon? That is not just bad luck. It is a manifestation of divine anger, or a demonic host sent by a powerful jinni. You can't call an exterminator. So you resort to what you know. You and your entire village might run through the fields, banging on pots and shouting, a futile attempt to scare them away. But you also rely on other methods. You might pay a traveling holy man a few precious coins to write a talisman, a piece of paper with a magic square or a Quranic verse on it, which you then bury in the corner of your field. You might perform a specific ritual, burning a foul-smelling herb at the field's edge to create a protective barrier. You are fighting a war on two fronts, the physical and the metaphysical. Then comes the harvest, the most intense and grueling work of all. Every member of your family who can stand is in the field from before the sun rises until long after it is set. There are no machines. You use a small, curved sickle. You grab a handful of stalks, slice through them, and lay them aside. Grab, slice, lay. Grab, slice, lay. It is 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 repetitions of the same motion. Your body is bent over all day, every day for weeks. The air is filled with fine, sharp chaff that gets in your eyes, your nose, your throat. Once the crop is cut, it must be threshed on a hard-packed floor of earth. You might spread the stalks out and have your ox walk in circles over them for hours. Or perhaps you have a norage, a heavy wooden sledge with sharp stones embedded in its underside, that the ox drags over the stalks to break the grain from the heads. The work is dusty, choking, and endless. Finally, you have a pile of grain mixed with chaff. You toss it into the air with a wooden fork, letting the wind carry away the lighter chaff, leaving the heavier, precious kernels of wheat or barley. You stand there, exhausted, covered in dust and sweat, and gaze upon the pile of grain that represents your entire year's work. It is a moment of deep, primal satisfaction. And then, the vultures arrive. First comes the agent of the landowner, the man from whom you rent the land. He is owed a share, which is often half of the total harvest. His men measure it out with their own baskets, taking the best of it. Then, as we saw before, comes the state's tax collector. He takes his portion for the carriage, the land tax, and any other new, inventive taxes the ruler has devised. After they have all gone, you are left looking at a small, depressingly meager pile. And this raises a fundamental question, one that historians still debate. What is your real status? Are you a free man? Legally, perhaps. You are not a chattel slave. But in reality, you are trapped. You are a tenant farmer, but the rent and taxes are so high you can never save enough to leave. You are perpetually in debt to your landlord, a debt that is passed down to your children. This distinction between a free tenant and a serf is a meaningless luxury. You are chained to this patch of earth by a debt that can never be repaid. You are the foundation of the entire society. Your grain feeds the soldiers who fight the wars, the artisans who craft the goods, the scholars who read the books, and the caliph in his palace. Yet your own family lives on the brink of starvation. You see the fruits of your labor, the sheer caloric energy you have wrenched from the earth, carted away to feed a world that you will never see, a world that holds you in contempt. You bag your small portion of the grain. It must serve as food for your family for the entire year, and, crucially, as the seed for next year's crop. There is no room for error, no room for disaster. You are standing at the end of a year of brutal, back-breaking, relentless labor. And you know, with the certainty of the rising sun, that tomorrow you will wake up and do it all over again. You stand in your dusty, depleted field, your back aching, your spirit crushed by the endless cycle of labor for someone else's gain. You look past the edge of your village, towards the vast, shimmering horizon of the great desert, and you see them, a small party of nomads on camelback, moving with a purpose you can't comprehend. And you feel a pang of something that might be envy. You see a life of movement, of open spaces, of fierce pride. You see freedom. The freedom from the landlord, the tax collector, the very soil that holds you captive. But that freedom is a dangerous and beautiful myth. Let us leave you for a moment in your dusty field and step into the life you imagine. Let us say you are now a Bedouin, a dweller of the desert. Your home is not a solid structure of mud and brick, but a long, low tin of woven black goat hair, a temporary shelter against the sun and wind. Your address is not a village and a lane. Your address is 3 days south of the Oton Well, and it will change next month. Your life is one of constant, restless motion. It is a mainstream historical fact of your existence that your life is defined by two inseparable concepts, the camel and the tribe. The camel is everything. It is your wealth, your status symbol, your primary food source, your transportation, and your war machine. A man with many camels is a great man. A man with none is nothing. Your entire life is dedicated to the well-being of these grumpy, spitting, miraculously resilient creatures. You follow them as they follow the promise of rain and the faintest hints of pasture. The tribe, your Kabila, is the only other thing that matters. You are not an individual in the way a city dweller might be. You are a son of your father, a member of your clan, and a warrior of your tribe. This is the source of your only safety, your only identity. An insult to your most distant cousin is a personal, mortal insult to you. This intense, unquestioning group solidarity, what the great historian Ibn Khaldun would call asabiya, is the glue that holds your world together and the fuel for its endless conflicts. You imagine this life is free. But what you are free from is replaced by other, more ruthless masters. You are a slave to the weather. You spend your life chasing clouds, praying the seasonal rains will fall where they are supposed to. If they fail, the sparse vegetation your animals depend on withers, and your camels, your wealth, your very life source, begin to die. And this is what leads to the central, quirky, and violent pastime of your people, the gas. The raid. The gas was not the total war of the cities. It is a kind of brutal sport and economic redistribution, all in one. Your tribe is starving. The tribe 2 valleys over had better rains, and their camels are fat. So you and the other men of your clan mount your swiftest riding camels, and you descend upon their herds at dawn. The goal is not to kill, but to steal. You want to drive away as many of their camels as you can before they can mount a defense. It is a swift, chaotic, and incredibly dangerous affair. People on both sides often do get killed, and a single death can spark a blood feud that lasts for generations, a cycle of revenge and counter-revenge that drains the lifeblood of your tribe. This raid is not an act of malice. It is a desperate, time-honored tradition of asset acquisition, the only way to survive when nature has failed you. This precarious existence shapes your relationship with the settled world, a relationship that historians still debate. Are you a parasite on the body of civilization, or a vital, symbiotic partner? The truth is, you are both. You are the bandit who haunts the caravan trails we traveled earlier, the terror of the merchants. You are the raider who sweeps down on the fields of the fellahin, stealing their harvest when your own herds are thin. But you are also the man who trades with them. You provide the cities with camels, leather, and meat. You guide the caravans, your knowledge of the desert's secret paths and hidden wells an invaluable commodity. You are a threat and a necessity, despised and needed in equal measure. Your relationship with the farmer is simple. When you are strong, you trade. When you are weak and starving, you take. Your diet is a testament to your harsh life. You thought the farmer's fare was monotonous? You would dream of his vegetable stew. Your staples are camel's milk, fresh, sour, or churned into butter, and dates, which you acquire through trade or by raiding an oasis. A piece of coarse bread made from grain you bartered for is a luxury. Meat is reserved for the most important occasions, a wedding, a funeral, or to honor a guest of great importance. You do not slaughter a camel, your source of wealth and mobility, mightily. And what of the famous Bedouin freedom? You have no landlord, it's true. But you are bound by the ironclad traditions of your tribe. You cannot simply decide to move to a new place or pursue a different life. Your identity is collective, and your individual will is subordinate to the needs of the group, as determined by the tribal sheikh. You are free from walls, but you can never escape the web of obligation and blood feud that defines your life. The one area where your code is absolute is hospitality. To deny a traveler water or shelter is the greatest possible shame. You will welcome a stranger into your tent, even your mortal enemy, and for 3 days, he is guaranteed absolute safety under your roof. You will kill one of your precious sheep to feed him. This is not just a romantic virtue, it is a critical survival mechanism. The man you save today might be the man whose tent you stumble into tomorrow, dying of thirst yourself. The rules are intricate and deadly serious, a sacred contract in a world without courts or police. So you stand beside your tent as the sun sets, casting long shadows across the endless, silent dunes. Your life is not a romantic adventure. It is a relentless search for grass and water. It is a state of constant vigilance against rival tribes. It is a life of stark simplicity and sudden, brutal violence. You are not free. You are simply untethered, and you are one failed rainy season, one lost camel, one bloody raid away from utter annihilation. We left you in the vast, open desert, a nomad whose only identity was the tribe, your every action reflecting on the whole. You might imagine that escaping the desert and returning to the civilization of a village or a city quarter would mean escaping this intense, collective existence. You would be wrong. The farmer in his hut and the artisan in his cramped city dwelling are just as trapped in the web of community as the Bedouin in his tent. In fact, in the crowded, jostling world of settled life, the walls are much closer, and the eyes of your neighbors are always upon you. Your concept of personal space is, to put it mildly, non-existent. You do not have a private room. You sleep on a mat in a common area with your family. Your house shares a wall with the houses on either side, and these walls are not soundproof. You can hear your neighbor's baby crying. You can hear him arguing with his wife. You can hear the sounds of their meals being prepared. And you know, with absolute certainty, that they can hear every sound from your home, too. There are no secrets. Your entire life is an open book, and everyone on your street is reading it over your shoulder. This lack of physical privacy is merely the stage for a much more profound lack of personal freedom. Your life is governed by a mainstream historical fact of your society, the ironclad code of honor and shame. Your honor, your sharaf, is not your own private possession. It is the collective property of your family, your lineage. Every action you take either polishes the shared treasure or befouls it. For women, the concept is even more intense. Your virtue, your reputation, your IRD, is the centerpiece of the entire family's honor. A single misstep by you brings abe, or shame, not just on yourself, but upon your father, your brothers, your uncles, your cousins. You are living on a reality TV show you can never leave, and your entire extended family gets evicted if you are responsible for bad ratings. Therefore, your life is a constant, exhausting performance. Every public act is scrutinized. The way you walk, the clothes you wear, the people you speak to, the tone of your voice, the piety you display at the mosque, the generosity you show to the poor, it is all being watched, noted, and judged by a jury of your peers. The primary tool of this judgment is gossip. The whispers at the village well, the chatter of men gathered in the marketplace, the intricate information networks of the women's quarters. This is your world's version of social media. It is fast, it is relentless, and it is brutal. A rumor can destroy a girl's marriage prospects. An accusation of cheating in business, even if unproven, can ruin a man's livelihood. Your reputation is the most valuable and most fragile thing you will ever possess. This constant scrutiny gives rise to a quirky and pervasive fear, the evil eye, the eye now hated. This is the belief that a powerful, destructive force can be transmitted through a glance of envy. If you experience any good fortune, a healthy newborn son, a surprisingly good harvest, a beautiful new robe, you must be careful not to flaunt it. The jealous glare of a neighbor who is less fortunate is believed to have the power to curdle your luck, to sicken your child, to cause your business to fail. It is a very real threat in your mind. This is why people are so quick to say, "Mashallah, what God has willed," when admiring something, to deflect any unintentional envy. It is why you sew blue beads and other protective amulets onto your children's clothes. You are not just protecting them from disease, you are protecting them from the loving, but potentially toxic, envy of your own community. And it is here that anthropologists and sociologists still debate the true function of this suffocating social pressure. Was it primarily a supportive social safety net, or a repressive mechanism of control? The answer is that it was both. If your husband dies, or your house burns down, it is this very community that will step in to ensure you and your children survive. Your neighbors will feed you, help you rebuild, and absorb you into their own households. In a world with no state-sponsored welfare or insurance, the tight-knit community is your only protection against utter catastrophe. But the price for this security is absolute conformity. The community that saves you from starvation is the same one that will ruthlessly punish any deviation from the norm. Any hint of nonconformity, of individualistic behavior, is met with the powerful weapons of ridicule, gossip, and, in extreme cases, ostracism. To be cut off from the community is a kind of social death, a fate almost worse than a physical one. This is why you must marry the person your father chooses, why you must practice your trade in the traditional way, why you must adhere to every single social and religious convention, no matter how tired or frustrated you may feel. This intense, honor-obsessed world is the key to understanding so much of the misery we've seen. The legal system's reliance on the testimony of upstanding witnesses makes perfect sense in a world where public reputation is everything. The strict seclusion of women, locking them away in the harem, is a direct result of their role as the vessels of family honor. The fear and suspicion directed at outsiders and strangers is the natural byproduct of a society where only known quantities can be trusted. So you sit in your home, listening to the muffled sounds of the lies pressing in on all sides. You have no space to think your own thoughts, to be your own person. You have only the role you are expected to play. Your individual identity is subsumed by the collective. Every day is a performance, a careful tightrope walk above a pit of shame and social ruin. This constant, wearying pressure, this complete lack of a private self, is one of the most profound and inescapable hardships of your entire life. You live your life on a tiny stage, constantly performing for an audience of watchful neighbors. Your greatest fear is a misspoken word, a social blunder, a stain upon your family's honor. You are suffocated by the judgment of other people. But there are forces in your world so vast and so violent that they can obliterate you, your neighbors, and the very concept of honor in a single, terrifying instant. Beyond the daily grind of human misery, There is the raw, untamed, and spectacular misery of nature's wrath. Imagine it's a perfectly ordinary afternoon. You are in your courtyard, mending a pot. The sun is hot, the air is still. The usual sounds of the city hum around you. Then comes the sound. It's not a sound you hear with your ears so much as feel in the pit of your stomach and the bones of your teeth. It is a deep, guttural, grinding roar that seems to come from the very belly of the earth. Before you can even process the sound, the ground beneath you gives a violent, sickening lurch. This is not a tremble. The solid world has turned to liquid. The ground moves in waves, like a choppy sea. You are thrown from your feet, unable to find purchase on an earth that has betrayed its fundamental nature. There is no Richter scale, no early warning system. There is only pure, primal terror. The air fills with a deafening cacophony, the groaning of stressed wood, the shriek of tortured stone, and then the explosive crash of buildings collapsing. Your own house, which has stood for 100 years, seems to flex and breathe. The walls crack, and the roof caves in, plunging you into a choking cloud of dust and darkness. You look out into the street and see the city's great minaret, a symbol of permanence and faith, sway like a drunken giant before crumbling into a mountain of rubble. This is a mainstream historical fact of your time. You live on unstable ground. Entire cities like Aleppo have been, and will be, leveled in minutes by these cataclysmic earthquakes, taking tens of thousands of lives in a single blow. When the shaking finally stops and an eerie, dust-filled silence descends, the first question that rises with the cries of the wounded is, why? And the answer you will be given, from the imam who crawls from the rubble of his mosque, is not geological. It is theological. This, he will declare, was a manifestation of the wrath of God. The ruler was unjust, the merchants were greedy, the people had given themselves over to drink and sin. This was not a natural disaster, it was a divine judgment, a punishment for your collective moral failures. This quirky, but universal, interpretation is the only one available. It turns a random, terrifying event into a narrative of sin and retribution, the only kind of cause and effect you can understand. And the earthquake is not the only horseman of this natural apocalypse. We have spoken of the locust swarm as a pest that threatens your crops. Now picture it as a force of nature. It is not a cloud. It is a moving landscape of blackness that swallows the sun. The air, thick with a storm of clicking, whirring bodies, roars with a sound like a great wildfire. They descend on the green, irrigated fields around your city, the product of 1,000 farmers' labor, and they devour it. Not just the leaves, but the stalks, the roots, the bark from the trees. In a few hours, a verdant paradise is transformed into a brown, barren desert. Your city's food supply for the next year has been wiped out. Famine, a slow and agonizing disaster, is now a certainty. Or perhaps the opposite happens. For months, you have endured the tyranny of the sun, praying for a single drop of rain to save the crops and fill the cisterns. Then, one day, the sky turns the color of a deep bruise. The rain comes, but it is not the gentle rain you prayed for. It is a violent, solid wall of water. The hard, baked earth, unable to absorb the deluge, sheds it like a stone. The dry riverbeds, the wadis, that people use as roads and grazing spots, become raging, frothing torrents of brown water in a matter of minutes. The flash flood, a liquid battering ram, sweeps away everything in its path: tents, livestock, people. The water you so desperately needed has arrived, but it has come as an executioner. It is the cruelest joke imaginable. How does a society function under the constant threat of sudden, total annihilation? Historians and environmental scientists still debate the deep, long-term impact of these recurring catastrophes. Did this constant uncertainty breed a profound fatalism in your people, a deep-seated belief in kismet, or fate? A sense that since your world could be swept away at any moment, there is no point in long-term planning, that all is ultimately in God's hands? Or did it, conversely, create a remarkable resilience, an ability to absorb unimaginable shocks, bury the dead, and immediately begin rebuilding on the very same haunted ground? Looking at your fellow survivors, you see both the dazed, hollow-eyed resignation and the frantic, desperate energy of people digging through the rubble with their bare hands, searching for their loved ones. In the immediate aftermath, the intricate social order you have lived by completely dissolves. The wealthy merchant whose honor was so precious is now just another terrified man covered in dust, his wealth buried under his collapsed house. The shame that seemed so important yesterday is a forgotten luxury. The only thing that matters is finding water, finding food, finding shelter, finding your family. All the human-made hierarchies are flattened by the absolute democracy of the disaster. You sit on a pile of rubble that was once your home, and you survey the wreckage of your world. You have endured the daily struggle for water and food. You have survived sickness and the terrifying cures of your physicians. You have been stalked by bandits, squeezed by tax collectors, and suffocated by your neighbors. But you have just been taught the final, humbling lesson. All of those are human-scale problems. Nature can produce a misery so vast, so impersonal, and so absolute that it makes all your other struggles seem like petty squabbles. It can erase your past and your future in a few, terrifying moments. And there is nothing at all you can do to stop it. The earth has stopped shaking. The flood waters have receded. The plague has passed. By some miracle, you have survived the great, spectacular catastrophes. But survival is not a moment of triumphant relief. It is the beginning of the next, and perhaps most relentless, struggle of all, the slow, arduous, and unending labor of ordinary life. There are no disaster relief agencies, no aid shipments. There is only you, your 2 hands, a few primitive tools, and a mountain of work to be done just to make it to the next sunrise. Your day does not begin with a gentle alarm or a moment of quiet contemplation. It begins before the sun with an immediate, pressing need. You must make the day's bread, the fuel for all other labor. And this single task reveals the immense expenditure of energy your life demands. You do not have a bag of flour from a store. You have a sack of hard, raw grain, your meager share from the last harvest. Your first tool of the day is the quern or hand mill. It is 2 heavy, circular stones, one sitting on top of the other. You pour a handful of grain into the hole in the top stone, grip the wooden handle, and begin to turn. And it is grueling, mind-numbing work. You must push and pull, your shoulders and back muscles screaming in protest, as the top stone grinds against the bottom one. The sound is a gritty, scraping groan that will echo in your ears for hours. Slowly, a coarse, brownish flour, mixed with stone dust, trickles out from between the stones. To produce enough flour for your family's daily bread will take you, or the women of your household, hours. Every single day. This is your food processor, and its only power source is human misery. Once you have the flour, you need a fire to bake the bread. This leads to the next great chore, finding fuel. In your world, what is a scarce and precious commodity, reserved for the wealthy or for essential construction. And this is the quirky and pungent reality of your hearth. Your primary fuel is animal dung. Part of your daily routine is to walk through the village or follow the family goat, collecting its droppings. You mix this with straw and water, form it into flat, round patties with your bare hands, and then slap them against the outer wall of your house to dry in the sun. This is your firewood. The charming smell of wood smoke you might imagine is wrong. The air in your village is thick with the sharp, acrid, eye-watering scent of burning dried dung. It is a very effective, renewable, and deeply unpleasant source of energy. With your fire lit, and your coarse, unleavened dough baking on a hot stone, the other chores press in. You must fetch the day's water. We have talked of the thirst, but now think of the labor. You and your children walk, perhaps for a mile or more, to the nearest well or stream. You fill your heavy, clay jars and begin the long, slow walk back. The weight of the water, 20 or 30 pounds per jar, digging into your shoulder or balanced precariously on your head. You will have to do this more than once. Every drop of water your family uses for drinking, cooking, or washing is paid for with this currency of sweat and aching muscles. In what of your clothes? You have perhaps 1 or 2 outfits, patched and repatched until they are a roadmap of your poverty. Making new cloth is a monumental undertaking. You might start with a fleece of raw, greasy wool from a sheep. It must be cleaned, a process involving stale urine to cut the grease. Then it must be carded, combing the fibers between 2 wire-toothed paddles until they are all aligned. Then comes the spinning. For countless hours, you will sit with a drop spindle, a simple weighted stick, patiently twisting the fibers into a single, continuous thread. The spindle spins and falls, and your thread grows by inches. To spin enough thread for a single tunic could take weeks of work, crammed into every spare moment of the day. And only then can the weaving begin, on a simple, upright loom propped against a wall of your house, slowly, painstakingly, creating a new piece of cloth. This endless procession of tasks is your entire life. And it's here that historians of labor and economics still debate how a person like you even perceived time. Did you have a concept of work and leisure? A work-life balance? Almost certainly not. That is a modern invention. Your life was not dictated by the clock, but by the task. The sun rises, so the animals must be milked. The dough is kneaded, so the fire must be lit. The thread is spun, so the loom must be warped. Life was not divided into hours of work and hours of freedom. It was a single, continuous stream of necessary labor, from the moment you woke until the moment you collapsed onto your sleeping mat. There is no convenience. There is no takeout. There is no running to the store because you are out of milk. Every single thing that sustains your life must be produced by your own direct, physical effort. Every calorie of food you put in your mouth is the result of thousands of calories of your own work, whether in the field or in the home. This is the great, hidden engine of your world, the constant, grinding, manual labor of the common person, a level of physical exertion that is almost unimaginable to us today. At the end of the day, you eat the bread you made from the grain you grew and ground yourself, cooked over a fire of the dung you gathered, and you wash it down with the water you carried on your back. Your body is a symphony of aches. Your hands are rough and calloused. Your mind is not occupied with grand ideas, but with the simple, weary calculation of tomorrow's chores. You are not building a legacy or pursuing a dream. You are simply engaged in the exhausting, unending, and deeply unglamorous work of staying alive, You fall onto your mat at the end of the long day, your body a landscape of aches. You have survived another cycle of chores. But the days, weeks, and years of this relentless, grinding labor are cumulative. They are like the dust from the hand mill, slowly but surely wearing away at the very stone of your being. You don't just get tired, you get worn out. You reach the venerable age of 45, and you are now an elder. This is not a triumphant milestone of wisdom and peaceful retirement. It is a state of physical decay. Your back is permanently stooped from a lifetime of bending over fields or loams. Your joints are swollen, and they scream with a dull, grinding fire with every movement. Your teeth, worn down by the grit in your bread, are mostly gone. Your vision is cloudy with cataracts from a lifetime of squinting in the harsh sun. Your skin is a leather map of every hardship you have endured. You have survived, but your body is a ruin, a testament to the high cost of that survival. It is a mainstream historical fact that your life is destined to be short. While a few rare, lucky souls might live into what we would consider old age, the average person does not. The staggering death toll of infancy and childhood means that life expectancy at birth is terrifyingly low. Having made it to adulthood, you have already beaten the odds. But you are a lonely survivor on a desolate shore. You have outlived many of your own children, buried siblings, watched friends waste away from disease or violence. You look at the world through the tired eyes of someone who has seen too much loss, and whose own time is rapidly running out. Your end is not likely to be dramatic. You will not fall in a great battle or be carried off by a spectacular plague. That is a fate for the young. Your end will be quiet, mundane, and pathetic. Perhaps you get a small cut on your foot, and because of a lifetime of malnutrition, your worn-out body cannot fight the infection. Perhaps a winter cough settles deep in your chest and never leaves. Or perhaps one morning, your heart, having beaten its way through decades of toil and sorrow, simply decides it is beaten enough. You take to your mat, and you know you will not be getting up again. Your family gathers around you. There are no machines to prolong your life, no complex medicines to offer a final, fleeting hope. There is only the quiet, inevitable process of shutting down. You lie there, listening to the muffled sounds of the life you are about to leave, and you fade. And then, with your last, ragged breath, you are gone. And what happens next is a testament to the simple, unsentimental nature of your world. There is no long, drawn-out period of mourning. There is no elaborate funeral planning. The quirky, but central, fact of your departure is its speed and simplicity. Your faith demands that you be returned to the earth as quickly as possible, usually within the day. Your body is taken by your family members of the same sex and given its final bath. It is washed with reverence, the water perfumed with camphor. Then, you are shrouded. There is no fancy suit or beautiful dress. Your final garment is the coffin, 3 simple, inexpensive pieces of white cloth, the same for the rich man as it is for the poor. It is the ultimate equalizer. You are wrapped tightly, a simple, anonymous parcel, ready for your final journey. You are carried on a simple open-air bier through the streets to the cemetery. A small procession of your family and neighbors follows, chanting prayers. You are lowered into a shallow grave, dug to face Mecca. There is no coffin to separate you from the earth. You are laid directly in the dirt, a final, intimate embrace. The earth is shoveled back, and it is done. It is a goodbye marked by its quiet dignity, its haste, and its profound finality. And what is left of you? A memory in the minds of your children, a story that will fade with their own passing. And it's here that historians and philosophers still debate how a person like you, from a world without widespread literacy or portraiture or individualism, would have even conceived of a legacy. You wrote no books, you built no monuments, you left no lasting mark of your unique personality on the world. Was your legacy simply the continuation of your family line? Was it the honor of your house, which you so carefully guarded? Or was your entire life merely a prelude, a test for the real life to come, your fate in the hands of a merciful God? For most people in your world, the story of the individual was not the point. The point was the family, the community, the faith. Your personal story dissolves back into the great, anonymous river of time. Your brief, painful, and arduous journey is over. You survived the thirst and the sun. You survived the hunger and the disease. You survived the wars and the taxes, the bandits and the judges. You survived the constant, wearying grind of a life that demanded everything and gave back so little. And now, you rest. In the quiet, dusty earth, you have finally found the peace that your world never offered you.